When a billionaire CEO watched a drunk investor grab his favorite waitress at 2 a.m., he had 3 seconds to decide. Walk away like everyone else or risk everything he'd built to protect a woman he barely knew. What happened next destroyed a corporate empire, exposed a pattern of abuse spanning years, and proved that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't money. It's a man who's already lost everything that mattered. This is the story of how one violent night in a Chicago diner changed 3 lives forever. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hit Chicago like it had a personal grudge. Not the romantic kind of rain you see in movies, the cold, miserable type that soaks through your coat in 30 seconds and makes you question every decision that brought you outside. The kind that turns the streets into black mirrors reflecting neon signs nobody bothers reading anymore. It was 1:47 a.m. on a Thursday, and the Silver Lantern Diner sat on the corner of Madison and Dearborn like it had been forgotten by time itself. The building sagged slightly to the left. The neon sign buzzed with electrical problems nobody had fixed in probably 15 years. Half the bulbs were dead, so instead of Silver Lantern Diner, it just read Verlan Air. Inside, the place smelled like burnt coffee, disinfectant, and that specific grease odor that clings to everything in a 24-hour restaurant. The floor was checkered black and white linoleum with cracks running through it like spider webs. Booths lined the windows with red vinyl seats that had been repaired so many times with duct tape they looked like patchwork quilts. Damian Cross sat in the back corner booth, the same one he'd occupied 4 nights a week for the past 8 months. He didn't look like a billionaire. That was intentional. The coat cost $4,000, but you'd never know it. Custom tailored to look like something you'd buy off a rack at a department store. Dark, simple, unremarkable. The watch was a $20 Casio. The boots were work boots, scuffed and weathered. His hair needed cutting. His face needed shaving. At 32, Damian had the kind of exhaustion that lived in your bones. The kind that came from raising a 7-year-old daughter alone while running a logistics empire that operated in 43 countries and employed over 60,000 people. 4 years. 4 years since cancer took Rebecca. 4 years of eating breakfast with Ava and pretending everything was normal. 4 years of bedtime stories and school pickups and parent-teacher conferences where he was the only father in a room full of mothers who looked at him with either pity or predatory interest. 4 years of his penthouse apartment feeling like a mausoleum. So he came here, to this broken-down diner where nobody recognized him, nobody wanted anything from him, and nobody asked questions he didn't want to answer. He came for the coffee, which was terrible, and he came for her. Emily Carter moved between tables with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd worked service industry jobs for too long. 30 years old, 5'5", with dark blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail that was starting to come loose near the end of her shift. She wore the standard uniform, black pants, white button-up shirt, black apron with pockets full of pens and order pads and coins for change. She had a scar above her left eyebrow. Damian had noticed it the first night. A small one, barely visible unless you were paying attention. He was always paying attention. More coffee? Her voice was soft, always soft, like she was afraid of taking up too much space in the world. Please. She poured without spilling a drop, even though her hands trembled slightly. They always trembled slightly around 2 a.m. Damian had noticed that too. You need anything else? I'm good. Thank you, Emily. She smiled, brief, automatic, professional, and moved to the next table. Damian watched her walk away and hated himself for it. Not because he was attracted to her, though he was, but because he knew what that made him. Another man in a long line of men who'd probably noticed her, wanted her, made her uncomfortable. So he kept his distance, tipped exactly 25%, never asked personal questions, never stayed past closing, never made her feel like his presence in this diner was anything other than what it appeared to be. A tired man who couldn't sleep, drinking bad coffee in a place where the silence didn't feel quite so heavy. The bell above the door chimed. 3 men walked in. Wrong was the first word that entered Damian's mind. Everything about them was wrong for this place. Designer suits that probably cost more than most people made in 6 months. Shoes polished to a mirror shine despite the rain outside. The kind of watches you saw in magazine ads aimed at people who thought $60,000 was a reasonable price for telling time. They were drunk. Not falling down drunk. Worse. The kind of drunk where you still had coordination, but your judgment was gone and you thought you were funnier, smarter, and more untouchable than you actually were. The leader was about 45, with salt and pepper hair styled with too much product, and a jawline that had probably been handsome 20 years and 30 pounds ago. His face had the ruddy complexion of someone who drank expensive scotch like it was water. Victor Langford. Damien recognized him instantly. Managing director at Helix Capital Partners. Hedge fund guy. The kind who made his money moving other people's money around and skimming profit off the top while producing nothing of actual value. They'd met twice at charity galas Damien had been forced to attend. Victor had been exactly as insufferable as he looked right now. The two men with him were younger, mid-30s, trying too hard to match Victor's energy. Associates, probably. Hungry and ambitious and willing to laugh at their boss's jokes even when they weren't funny. They took the booth directly across from the counter, sprawling into the seats like they owned the place. Emily approached with menus and water glasses. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with—" "Coffee," Victor interrupted. "And make it strong. We've been celebrating." "Congratulations," Emily said quietly. "I'll get that coffee right out." She turned to leave. Victor's hand shot out and caught her wrist. The diner wasn't crowded, just 7 other customers scattered across the booths and counter stools. But every single one of them went still. "Hold on," Victor said. His voice had that particular edge drunk men get when they think they're being charming. "You didn't ask what we were celebrating." "I'm sorry." Emily's voice got even quieter. "What were you celebrating?" "Closed a deal tonight, $43 million. He grinned at his associates, who grinned back on cue. $43 million in one signature. "That's wonderful," Emily said. She tried to pull her wrist back. Victor didn't let go. "You know what I think?" He leaned closer. "I think service workers should take more interest in their customers. Show some enthusiasm. Make us feel special." One of the associates laughed. The other one was staring at Emily with an expression Damien had seen before. Hungry, calculating. "I apologize if I seemed disinterested," Emily said. Her professional smile was locked in place, but Damien could see the tension in her shoulders. "I'll get your coffee now." "Maybe I don't want coffee anymore." Victor's thumb traced a small circle on the inside of her wrist. "Maybe I want to know your story. Pretty girl like you working the graveyard shift in a place like this. There's got to be a story there." "Please let go of my wrist." "Come on, don't be like that. We're just being friendly." "Sir, I need to serve other customers." "They can wait." Emily pulled harder. Victor's grip tightened. That's when Damien stood up. He didn't slam his hands on the table, didn't shout, didn't make a dramatic show of it. He just stood, slowly, and the movement drew every eye in the diner. The other customers looked down immediately. The cook, visible through the kitchen window, suddenly became very interested in the grill he was cleaning. The other waitress, Karen, mid-50s, worked mornings and covered nights when Emily needed a break, took 2 steps backward. Damien walked across the diner floor with the same calm, measured pace he used in boardrooms when someone was about to be fired. 10 steps. 9. 8. Victor noticed him at 5 steps and looked up with the annoyed expression of someone being interrupted. 4 steps. 3. Damien stopped directly beside their booth. "Let her go," he said. His voice was quiet, conversational. The kind of tone you'd use to ask someone to pass the salt. Victor blinked, then laughed. "Excuse me?" "Her wrist. Let go of it." Victor looked at his associates. They were grinning, sensing entertainment. "This your boyfriend?" Victor asked Emily, who was frozen in place. "No, sir, I don't—" "Then this doesn't concern you," Victor said to Damien. "Go back to your coffee, friend." "I'm not your friend," Damien said, "and I asked you politely." "You asked me?" Victor's face flushed darker. "You asked me?" He still hadn't let go of Emily's wrist. "Last chance," Damien said. Victor stood up fast, drunk fast, which meant clumsy. He was 3 inches shorter than Damien and probably 40 pounds heavier, most of it around his midsection. "You know who I am?" "Yeah," Damien said. "I know exactly who you are." "Then you know you're making a very stupid mistake." The associate on the left stood up too. He was bigger than Victor, 6'2", athletic build, probably worked out 5 days a week and told everyone about it. He positioned himself at Victor's shoulder, trying to look intimidating. "My friend here handles security," Victor said. "Maybe you should reconsider your approach." Damien didn't take his eyes off Victor. "I don't want to hurt anyone, Chubb," he said. "I just want you to let the lady go so she can do her job. And I want you to mind your own business." "Can't do that." "Then we have a problem." "No," Damien said quietly. "You have a problem." The security guy moved first. It was textbook. A straight right hand aimed at Damien's jaw, probably intended to drop him fast and make a point about who was in charge. Damien had seen it coming before the guy even shifted his weight. 12 years ago, Damien had been Captain Cross, Marine Force Recon, operating in places the government still denied sending troops. He'd learned hand-to-hand combat from instructors who taught you how to kill people in under 3 seconds using nothing but your thumbs. He hadn't lost the muscle memory. Damien stepped inside the punch, redirected it past his shoulder, grabbed the guy's extended arm with both hands and used his own momentum to pivot him face first into the edge of the booth table. The impact made a sound like a watermelon hitting concrete. The security guy dropped like his strings had been cut. Total elapsed time, 2 seconds. Victor stumbled backward, finally releasing Emily's wrist. The second associate jumped up, reaching into his jacket. "Don't," Damien said. His voice carried a tone that made the associate freeze with his hand halfway to whatever he was reaching for. Everyone in the diner was staring now. Emily had both hands pressed to her mouth. The cook had come out of the kitchen, phone in hand. "You're insane," Victor said. His voice came out higher than he probably intended. "You just assaulted my associate. I have witnesses. I'm pressing charges. I'm going to bury you." Damien looked at him for a long moment. "You grabbed her wrist," he said. "She asked you to let go 3 times. I gave you a chance to walk away." "That's not how the police are going to see it." "Probably not," Damien agreed. Victor smiled. It was an ugly smile. "You have any idea what lawyers cost?" he asked. "Any idea how long I can drag this out? I will own everything you have by the time this is done. Your house, your car, your savings." "Okay," Damien said. That stopped Victor mid-rant. "Okay? Yeah, do what you need to do." Damien turned to Emily. "You all right?" She nodded, but her hands were still shaking. "I'm sorry," Damien said. "I didn't mean to make things worse." "You didn't—" Her voice cracked. "You didn't make anything worse." Sirens approached outside. Someone had called 911. The security guy was groaning on the floor, blood running from his nose. Damien knelt beside him, checked his pupils, felt for his pulse. "Probable concussion," he said. "No spinal damage. He'll be fine." "How would you know?" the second associate demanded. Damien didn't answer. The police arrived 3 minutes later, 2 patrol officers, both young, both looking like they'd rather be literally anywhere else at 2 a.m. Victor launched into his version immediately. Unprovoked attack. Violent customer. Innocent businessmen just trying to have coffee. The officer taking notes looked skeptical, but he wrote it down. Then he turned to Damien. "Your side?" Damien told the truth, simply and clearly. Victor grabbed Emily's wrist. Emily asked him to stop. Damien intervened. The security guy threw a punch. Damien defended himself. "Anyone else see what happened?" the officer asked. Silence. Every customer in the diner suddenly became very interested in their food. Emily opened her mouth. "Don't," Karen whispered to her. "You need this job." Emily closed her mouth. The officer sighed. He'd been a cop long enough to know what silence meant. "We're going to need you to come down to the station," he said to Damien. "Answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet, but Mr. Langford here is filing assault charges." "Okay," Damien said again. He pulled out his wallet, left 2 20s on his booth table, enough to cover his coffee and tip Emily her usual 25%, and followed the officers outside. Victor watched him go with a triumphant smile. "You see that?" he said to his associates. "That's what happens when you forget your place." Emily stood at the counter, staring at the door where Damien had just exited. "You okay, honey?" Karen asked. "He didn't even tell them his name," Emily whispered. "What?" "The police. They didn't ask his name. He just went with them." She looked down at her wrist where Victor had grabbed her. There were already finger-shaped bruises forming against her pale skin. Victor's voice carried across the diner. Get me the manager, he demanded. I want that man permanently banned from this establishment, and I want something for my trouble. That assault just ruined my entire evening. Karen picked up the phone to call the night manager. Emily walked to Damien's booth and picked up the 220s. Underneath was a business card. Plain white. No logo. Just a name and a phone number printed in simple black text. Damien Cross, 773-555. 0147? Emily stared at the card for a long moment. Then she slipped it into her apron pocket. 3 hours later, Damien sat in an interrogation room at the 18th District Police Station, drinking worse coffee than what they served at the diner. The detective across from him was in her late 40s, with tired eyes and the kind of posture that came from too many years sitting in uncomfortable chairs. So let me get this straight, Detective Sarah Morrison said. You claim Mr. Langford grabbed the waitress. She asked him to stop. You intervened. His security guard attacked you. You defended yourself. That's correct. And you have no witnesses to support this version of events. The diner was full of witnesses, none of whom saw anything. Damien didn't respond. Morrison leaned back in her chair. Mr. Langford is a prominent businessman in this city, she said. He's already contacted his lawyers. They're pushing hard for assault charges. They've also provided security footage from outside the diner showing you following Mr. Langford's associate into the street. I didn't follow him anywhere. The officers walked me out. The footage is unclear on that point. I see. Morrison studied him for a moment. You didn't ask for a lawyer, she observed. Don't need one yet. Most people in your situation would be screaming for representation. I'm not most people. No, Morrison agreed. You're not. I ran your ID, clean record. Not even a parking ticket. But that's interesting too, because there's almost nothing on you. No social media, very little digital footprint, just a Chicago address and a valid driver's license. I like my privacy. Sure. Morrison tapped her pen against her notepad. So what do you do for work, Mr. Cross? Logistics. That's vague. It's accurate. Uh-huh. Morrison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then looked back at Damien. Your waitress just came in. Emily Carter. She wants to give a statement. Damien sat up straighter. She doesn't have to do that. No, she doesn't, but she's here anyway. Morrison stood. Sit tight. She left Damien alone in the interrogation room. 20 minutes passed. Morrison came back looking annoyed. Miss Carter corroborates your version of events, she said. Says Mr. Langford grabbed her wrist. She asked him to stop multiple times. You intervened only after he refused to release her. So I'm free to go? Not quite. Mr. Langford's lawyers have gotten a judge out of bed. They're pushing for assault charges regardless of Miss Carter's testimony. They're calling it excessive force, claiming you had no right to physically engage when you could have simply called police. While he held her against her will? Their argument, not mine. Morrison sat back down. Look, off the record? I believe you. I believe her. I've dealt with guys like Langford before. They're rich, powerful. Think the rules don't apply to them. But he's got 5 lawyers already building a case, and you walked into that diner wearing a coat that probably cost $50 and driving, she checked her notes, a 2015 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. The optics aren't great. Damien almost smiled. The Civic was one of 7 cars he owned. He kept it specifically for nights when he didn't want attention. The dent was from Ava hitting it with her bike 3 months ago. He'd never fixed it because she'd been so upset about it, and leaving it dented made her feel less guilty. Can I ask you something? Morrison said. Sure. Why'd you step in? You don't know that girl. You could have walked away. Nobody would have blamed you. Damien thought about that for a moment. My daughter, he said finally. Ava. She's 7. And I keep thinking about what kind of man I'm teaching her to expect in this world. What kind of man I'm teaching her I am. Morrison nodded slowly. You got someone I can call? Family? Lawyer? I'll make a call myself if that's all right. Yeah, you got 5 minutes. Damien pulled out his phone and dialed a number he never wanted to use but kept programmed just in case. It rang twice. Cross. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional, wide awake despite the hour. Status. Marcus, I need you to handle something. Marcus Webb had been Damien's head of security for 6 years, former Secret Service, the kind of guy who could disappear a problem before it became a headline. Location? 18th District, assault charge pending. It's bullshit, but it's going to be messy. Victim or aggressor? Defender. Witnesses? 1. Waitress from the Silver Lantern, Emily Carter. Plaintiff? Victor Langford, Helix Capital. There was a pause. Well, Marcus said, you don't do anything small, do you? Can you handle it? Already running background. Give me 90 minutes. Thanks. Boss? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And Ava? Home with Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen was the live-in nanny who'd been with them since Rebecca died. 68 years old, former kindergarten teacher, loved Ava like her own granddaughter. Good. Sit tight. Don't say anything else to anyone. Marcus hung up. Morrison came back exactly 5 minutes later. Your lawyer coming? Something like that. Okay, you're free to go for now, but don't leave the city. We'll be in touch. Damien stood, collected his wallet and keys, and headed for the exit. Emily was sitting in the waiting area. She looked up when she saw him, started to stand. You didn't have to do that, Damien said quietly. Yes, I did. You could lose your job. Probably. Her voice was steadier now, though her hands were still trembling. But you were telling the truth. And he was lying. And I'm sick of men like him getting away with things because everyone's too scared to speak up. Damien looked at her for a long moment. Thank you, he said. Are you in trouble? Nothing I can't handle. I'm sorry. This is my fault. No, Damien said firmly. It's not. None of this is your fault. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why'd you help me? You don't know me. You could have just walked away. Damien thought about Detective Morrison asking him the same question. I have a daughter, he said, 7 years old, and I want her to grow up in a world where people help each other, where doing the right thing matters more than staying safe. That's a good reason. It's the only reason I've got. They stood there in the fluorescent lighting of the police station waiting room, two people whose lives had just gotten infinitely more complicated because one of them had decided to be decent. I should go, Damien said. Wait. Emily pulled something from her apron pocket, the business card. You left this. Keep it, in case you need anything. I don't understand. Why would I need... Victor Langford doesn't like losing, Damien said, and I just made him lose in front of his people. He's going to retaliate. Probably sue me. Maybe come after you too for giving that statement. Emily's face went pale. I didn't think it. You did the right thing, Damien interrupted, but the right thing doesn't always come without consequences. So keep the card. If anything happens, anything at all, you call that number. Okay, she whispered. Damien walked out into the early morning darkness. The rain had stopped, leaving everything slick and reflecting the streetlights. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Found something. Call me when you're secure. Damien got in his dented Civic and drove 3 blocks before pulling over and calling back. What'd you find? Langford's got a history, Marcus said. Nothing prosecuted, but I pulled some records. 4 harassment complaints in the past 6 years, 3 from employees, 1 from a restaurant server in New York. All of them settled quietly with NDAs. He's got a pattern. Send me everything. Already in your encrypted folder. But boss, this gets worse. The security guy you put down? He's not just muscle. Former NYPD, dishonorably discharged for excessive force. Langford keeps him around specifically for situations like tonight. So this wasn't random. This was Langford being Langford, with a guy on payroll to handle anyone who objects. You just happened to be someone who didn't go down easy. Damien was quiet for a moment. What else? The diner's surveillance cameras. Langford's lawyers are already trying to get the footage, and from what I can tell, the angle doesn't show the initial grab, just you standing up and the fight. Perfect. Yeah, this is going to be a shit show. You want me to reach out to our legal team? Not yet. Give me 24 hours. Why? Because I want to see exactly how far Langford's willing to push this before I push back. Boss, with all due respect, You're about to be all over the news as the guy who attacked a prominent businessman. Your name, your face. My name is about to be everywhere anyway, Damien said quietly. Might as well control the narrative. He hung up and sat in the Civic for a long moment. Then he drove home. The penthouse was silent when he entered. Mrs. Chen had left a note on the kitchen counter. Ava asleep by 9:30. Good night, no problems. Damien walked upstairs and stood in the doorway of Ava's room. She was sprawled across her bed like a starfish, her dark hair tangled on the pillow, one arm hanging off the edge, clutching a stuffed elephant named Mr. Trunk. She looked exactly like Rebecca had at that age. Damien crossed the room silently and tucked the blanket around her shoulders. Ava shifted, murmured something about pancakes, then settled back into sleep. He stood there for a long time, watching her breathe. Tomorrow, Victor Langford was going to try to destroy him. Tomorrow, the lawyers would start their attack. Tomorrow, Damien Cross, a man who'd spent 4 years carefully avoiding attention, was going to become a headline. But tonight, Ava was safe. Tonight, a scared waitress had found the courage to tell the truth. Tonight, doing the right thing had cost him nothing he wasn't willing to pay. Damien walked back downstairs, poured himself 2 fingers of scotch he wouldn't drink, and sat in the dark penthouse living room watching the Chicago skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. His phone lit up with the first news alert at 6:47 a.m. Breaking. Hedge fund manager Victor Langford assaulted at local diner. The story was already live on 3 news websites. All of them featured a photo of Damien being led out of the diner by police. None of them mentioned Emily Carter. None of them mentioned why Damien had intervened. The narrative was already written. Violent customer attacks innocent businessmen. Damien read through the articles twice, making mental notes of which outlets Victor had clearly fed the story to. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Cross? A woman's voice, professional, cold. This is Jennifer Martinez with the law firm of Whitmore, Carey and Associates. We represent Mr. Victor Langford. We're calling to inform you that our client intends to pursue both criminal and civil action against you for the assault that occurred at approximately 2 a.m. this morning. We're also informing you that we have obtained a temporary restraining order preventing you from contacting Mr. Langford or any member of his party, including his associate who was injured in the attack. Is that all? A pause. She'd probably expected fear or anger or desperate pleading. Mr. Cross, I don't think you understand the severity of the situation you're in. I understand perfectly. Our client is prepared to pursue this to the fullest extent of the law. Your actions were reckless, dangerous, and your client grabbed a woman's wrist and refused to release her when she asked him to stop 3 times. That's assault. That's battery. And that's on camera with audio. Another pause. I don't know what you think you have. I know exactly what I have, and you're going to know too, very soon. Is there anything else? You're making a mistake, Mr. Cross. Probably not my first. Definitely not my last. He hung up. Upstairs, he heard Ava starting to wake up. The familiar sound of her feet hitting the floor, Mr. Trunk being dragged along the hallway. Daddy? Damien stood and went to meet her at the stairs. Morning, baby girl. Why are you up so early? Couldn't sleep. Me neither. Can we have chocolate chip pancakes? Absolutely. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the kitchen, already chattering about her upcoming field trip to the zoo and how her friend Madison had the same shirt as her except in purple instead of blue. And wasn't that basically the same thing? Damien made pancakes, made Ava laugh, watched her spill syrup on Mr. Trunk, and immediately panic about ruining him. He's fine, Damien assured her. We'll put him in the wash. He'll be good as new. Promise? Promise. She hugged Mr. Trunk tight, getting syrup in her hair. This was what mattered. Not Victor Langford, not lawsuits, not headlines. This. His phone kept buzzing throughout breakfast. News alerts. Messages from business associates who'd seen the story. Concerned emails from board members. He ignored all of it. At 8:30, Mrs. Chen arrived to take Ava to school. Everything all right? She asked quietly, seeing Damien's expression. Everything's fine. I saw the news. Of course she had. It's not what it looks like. I didn't think it was. Mrs. Chen had known Damien for 6 years. She'd seen him at his worst, the weeks after Rebecca died when he could barely function. She knew who he was. You need anything? Just take care of Ava. Always. After they left, Damien showered, changed into a suit, a real one this time, the kind that cost what it looked like it cost, and made a call. Marcus, time to push back. What do you need? Everything you found on Langford. Every complaint, every settlement, every piece of dirt, and I want it organized, verified, and ready to go public. Boss, if we do this, I know what happens if we do this. Your anonymity is gone. Every news outlet in the city is going to be digging into who you are. I know. Ava's going to see her father all over the news. I know, Damien said quietly. But she's also going to see her father standing up for someone who couldn't defend themselves. And that lesson is worth the cost. There was a long pause. Okay, Marcus said finally. I'll have everything ready in 4 hours. Make it 3. I want to beat the evening news cycle. Damien hung up and stood at the windows overlooking Chicago. Somewhere out there, Victor Langford was celebrating his victory. Somewhere out there, Emily Carter was probably terrified about what came next. And somewhere in this city, there were other people like Emily, people who'd been grabbed, harassed, intimidated, silenced. Damien had the resources to fight back. He had the platform. He had the truth. And for the first time in 4 years, he had a reason to use all of it for something that mattered. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. This is Emily. Thank you for last night, and I'm sorry for everything that's about to happen to you because of me. Damien stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, nothing to be sorry for. And this isn't about to happen to me. This is about to happen to him. He hit send, and then he went to war. The war started at 11:43 a.m. with a phone call Victor Langford should never have made. He was in his corner office on the 42nd floor of the Helix Capitol building, nursing a headache and a bruised ego, when his assistant buzzed through. Mr. Cross is on line 3. Victor sat up straight. He'd expected lawyers, maybe a groveling apology through intermediaries. He hadn't expected a direct call. Put him through. The line clicked. Mr. Langford, Damien's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I thought we should talk. There's nothing to talk about. My lawyers will handle everything. I'm sure they will. But before this gets uglier than it needs to, I wanted to give you a chance. Victor laughed. A chance? You assaulted my security guard. You humiliated me in front of... I stopped you from committing battery against a woman who asked you 3 times to let her go. And your security guard threw the first punch. Everything after that was self-defense. That's not how the courts will see it. Maybe, maybe not. Damien paused. Here's what's going to happen, Victor. You're going to drop all charges. You're going to issue a public apology to Emily Carter. And you're going to make a substantial donation to a women's safety organization of my choosing. The silence on the other end lasted 5 full seconds. Then Victor started laughing, really laughing. Are you out of your mind? You think you can dictate terms to me? Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? Yeah, Damien said quietly. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Question is, do you? I'm Victor Langford. I manage $2.3 billion in assets. I have senators on speed dial. I've destroyed men with 10 times your net worth for breakfast and didn't lose sleep over it. Okay. Okay, that's all you have to say? I gave you a chance to do this the easy way. You just chose the hard way. That's fine. I can work with that. You're bluffing. You're nobody. We'll see. Damien hung up. Victor stared at his phone, his headache getting worse. Get me Jennifer Martinez, he told his assistant. Now. While Victor was scrambling to shore up his legal position, Damien was 3 blocks away in an unmarked office building that didn't appear on any public registry. The room was windowless, climate-controlled, and filled with enough computer equipment to run a small intelligence agency. Which, in a way, it did. Marcus Webb stood at a bank of monitors, fingers flying across a keyboard. How'd he take it? Marcus asked without looking up. About how you'd expect. So we're doing this. We're doing this. Marcus pulled up a file that had taken his team exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes to compile. Okay, here's what we've got. 4 harassment complaints, like I mentioned. But I kept digging. There's more. A woman's photo appeared on the central screen. Mid-20s, professional headshot. Sarah Brennan worked as Victor's executive assistant 3 years ago, filed an HR complaint claiming he cornered her in his office during a late-night meeting. Helix Capital settled for $80,000, NDA included. Another photo. Jessica Torres, server at Mastro's Steakhouse in New York. Victor grabbed her inappropriately during a client dinner. Restaurant settled to avoid publicity, $75,000. More photos. More names. More settlements. Rachel Kim, former analyst at Helix, complaint filed, then withdrawn after she was transferred to their London office. No settlement on record, but her LinkedIn shows she quit 6 months later. That's 8 women, Damien said quietly. That we found. In 48 hours of looking, Marcus turned to face him. Boss, this guy's been doing this for years, and he's gotten away with it because he's rich enough to make problems disappear and powerful enough that people are scared to speak up. Not anymore. Marcus nodded slowly. All right, but once we release this, there's no walking it back. Every news outlet is going to be calling. They're going to want to know who you are, why you care, what your connection is. I know. And they're going to dig into your background, your business, your family. I know, Damien repeated. Ava's going to see her dad all over the news. Damien was quiet for a moment. She's 7. She doesn't watch the news. Other kids do. Their parents do. Someone at her school is going to say something. Then I'll handle it when it happens. Marcus studied him. You sure about this? No, Damien admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? You don't owe that waitress anything. It's not about owing anyone anything. It's about... Damien paused, searching for the right words. Rebecca used to say that wealth was a test, that having money didn't make you better than anyone else. It just gave you more power to choose who you wanted to be. And every day I don't use what I have to do something that matters. I'm failing that test. Marcus didn't say anything for a long moment. All right, he said finally, let's burn this bastard down. By 2 p.m., the first story dropped. Not on mainstream news. Damien was smarter than that. It started on a mid-sized investigative journalism blog called Chicago Unfiltered, run by a reporter named Amanda Chen, who'd built her reputation on taking down corrupt politicians and corporate criminals. The headline read, Pattern of Abuse. 8 women accuse hedge fund manager Victor Langford of harassment. The article was meticulous. Every claim was sourced. Every settlement was documented. Every victim who was willing to speak, 3 of them had agreed to go on record, was given space to tell their story. Sarah Brennan's quote was particularly damning. He told me that if I wanted to advance in this industry, I needed to be more accommodating. When I refused, he cornered me in his office and put his hand on my leg. I was 24. I was terrified. I reported it to HR, and they paid me to go away. Within an hour, the story had been picked up by 2 major Chicago news stations. Within 2 hours, it was trending on social media. By 3 p.m., Victor's phone was ringing off the hook. Tell me you're handling this, he barked at Jennifer Martinez. We're drafting a statement denying all allegations. These are clearly coordinated attacks designed to I don't care about statements. I want to know who leaked this. I want to know who paid these women to lie. Mr. Langford, these aren't lies. These are documented settlements that your company paid. Confidential settlements with NDAs, which several of the women are now willing to break. They're saying the story is too important to stay silent about. Victor's office felt like it was shrinking. This is that guy from the diner, Cross. This is him. We don't have any evidence. I don't need evidence. I know it's him. Find out who he is. Find out everything about him. I want ammunition. Sir, perhaps we should focus on damage control rather than do what I'm paying you for. He slammed the phone down hard enough to crack the screen. His assistant appeared in the doorway, looking nervous. Mr. Langford, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They want you there in 30 minutes. Tell them I'm busy. Sir, they said it wasn't a request. Victor looked up sharply. What? Mr. Harrison specifically said that if you don't attend, they'll proceed without you. Richard Harrison was the chairman of Helix Capital's board, a 70-year-old former investment banker who'd built the firm from nothing and still controlled 40% of the voting shares. If Harrison was calling an emergency meeting, Victor was in trouble. Real trouble. Meanwhile, Emily Carter was having the worst day of her life. She'd gone to work expecting maybe some awkward questions about the police statement. Instead, she walked into the diner and found her manager, Paul Thompson, waiting with an expression that told her everything she needed to know. Emily, office, now. The office was barely bigger than a closet, wedged between the kitchen and the dry storage. It smelled like old coffee and disappointment. Paul closed the door. What the hell were you thinking? I was telling the truth. You were making yourself the center of a media circus. Do you know how many calls I've gotten today? Reporters wanting to interview you, lawyers asking about surveillance footage. Corporate is losing their minds. I'm sorry, but I had to. Had to what? Destroy your career because that's what you just did. Emily felt her stomach drop. What? Paul wouldn't meet her eyes. Corporate thinks you're a liability. They're worried about lawsuits. They want you gone. You're firing me? It's not my decision. Yes, it is. You're the manager. And I have a boss, too. Paul's voice rose, then he caught himself. Took a breath. Look, Emily, I like you. You're a good worker, but this is bigger than me, bigger than you. That guy you defended, he attacked a customer. A rich, connected customer who's threatening to sue everyone involved. Corporate doesn't want that kind of heat. He didn't attack anyone. He was defending me. That's not what the news is saying. Then the news is wrong. Doesn't matter. What matters is protecting the business. Emily stood there, hands shaking, trying to process what was happening. So that's it? I tell the truth and I lose my job? I can give you 2 weeks' pay, off the books. It's the best I can do. I've worked here for 3 years. I know. I've never missed a shift, never been late, never... I know, Paul said again, softer this time. And I'm sorry, I really am, but this is how it is. Emily walked out of the office, untied her apron, and left it on the counter. Karen tried to stop her. Honey, wait! Don't, Emily said. Her voice was tight. Just don't. She walked out into the afternoon sunlight and realized she had nowhere to go. Her apartment was a studio in a bad neighborhood that cost most of her paycheck. She had maybe $800 in savings. No family in Chicago, no backup plan. She pulled out her phone and stared at the business card photo she'd taken that morning. Damian Cross, 7735550-147. Her thumb hovered over the call button. No. She couldn't. This was already too much. He'd done enough. She wouldn't drag him into her problems any more than she already had. She put the phone away and started walking. 3 blocks later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Miss Carter? A woman's voice. Professional, but warm. My name is Rachel Kim. I saw your name in the news today, in connection with the Victor Langford incident. Emily stopped walking. How did you get my number? That's not important right now. What's important is that I was one of the women who worked with Victor, and I want to thank you for speaking up. I don't understand. I filed a harassment complaint against him 3 years ago. The company made it disappear, transferred me to London. I was too scared to fight it, so I just left, started over, and I've regretted it ever since. Emily found a bench and sat down heavily. Why are you calling me? Because I saw the story about what happened at the diner, and I saw that you gave a statement to the police even though you knew it would cost you. That takes real courage. It cost me my job. I know. I heard. Rachel paused. Listen, I don't know you, but I know what it's like to be in your position, and I know what it's like to stand up to powerful men who think they can do whatever they want. If you need help, a lawyer, a place to stay, whatever, I have resources, and I'd like to help. Emily felt tears burning behind her eyes. Why? Because someone should have helped me, and they didn't, and I don't want that to happen to you. They talked for 20 minutes. By the end of the call, Emily had the names of 3 employment lawyers, 2 contacts at women's advocacy groups, and an open invitation to stay at Rachel's guest house while she figured things out. One more thing, Rachel said before hanging up. The man who defended you, Damian Cross. Do you know who he is? No, I mean, he gave me his card, but I haven't called him. You should look him up. Why? Because you're about to find out that the most powerful person in this entire situation isn't Victor Langford. Rachel hung up. Emily sat on the bench for a long moment. Then she opened her phone and typed Damian Cross Chicago into Google. The search results loaded. Her hands started shaking. At 4:15 p.m., Victor Langford walked into the boardroom and knew immediately that he was finished. Richard Harrison sat at the head of the table. 7 other board members flanked him on either side. All of them had the same expression, professional disappointment mixed with barely concealed fury. "Sit down, Victor." Victor sat. Harrison slid a manila folder across the table. "We've been made aware of some troubling information. Multiple allegations of harassment spanning several years. Settlements paid out of company funds. NDAs signed without board approval. Those allegations are false. They're coordinated attacks by—" "Don't." Harrison's voice was sharp. "Don't insult our intelligence. We've reviewed the documentation. We've spoken with legal. We've confirmed every single settlement." Another board member, Patricia Cheng, spoke up. "You paid out over $400,000 in company money to silence harassment complaints. Money that came from the operational budget without oversight. Those were nuisance settlements. Standard practice is disclosing them to the board," Patricia interrupted. "Standard practice is following our ethics policies. Standard practice is not creating a pattern of behavior that exposes this firm to massive legal liability." Victor felt sweat forming at his collar. "I can explain all of this. You're suspended," Harrison said. "Effective immediately. Full investigation to follow. You'll surrender your company access cards, your laptop, and your phone. Security will escort you from the building." "You can't do this." "We absolutely can. Read your contract. The morality clause is very clear. I built this division. I brought in $2 billion in assets. And you've now made those assets vulnerable to withdrawal when our investors see the headlines. Which, by the way, just got worse." Patricia turned a laptop to face him. The screen showed a news alert. Helix Capital Board suspends. Victor Langford, amid harassment investigation. "How?" Victor's voice came out strangled. "How did they get that information? We haven't announced anything." Harrison's expression was cold. "Someone's feeding the press real-time updates. Someone with access to very good information. Someone who wants to make sure you can't bury this." Victor's mind raced. Cross. It had to be Cross. But how? Who was he? How did he have this kind of reach? "I want a lawyer," Victor said. "You should absolutely get one," Harrison agreed, "because the board is also considering whether to pursue charges against you for misuse of company funds. The settlements you authorized? Those might constitute fraud." Victor stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "This is ridiculous. You're destroying me over allegations, over a pattern of behavior that we chose to ignore until someone forced us to pay attention," Harrison finished. "And that's on us as much as it is on you, but it ends now." Security appeared at the door. Victor looked at the board members one by one, searching for an ally. He found none. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," Harrison replied quietly. "It really is." They escorted Victor out through the back entrance to avoid the reporters who'd already gathered in the lobby. His phone, the one he'd been allowed to keep for exactly 10 more minutes before security confiscated it, buzzed with incoming messages, clients pulling their accounts, investors demanding explanations, friends suddenly too busy to take his calls. His entire world was collapsing in real time. And somewhere in Chicago, Damian Cross was watching it happen. At 6 p.m., Damian was home when Ava burst through the door with Mrs. Chen following behind. "Daddy, Daddy, we saw a turtle at the park." "Did you?" Damian scooped her up. "Was it a big turtle or a little turtle?" "Medium turtle, and it had green spots. And Mrs. Chen said it was probably a painted turtle, but I think it was a magic turtle." "Why magic?" "Because it looked at me. Really looked. Like it knew something." Damian smiled despite everything. "What do you think it knew?" "That I'm going to be a veterinarian when I grow up, obviously." "Obviously." Mrs. Chen caught Damian's eye over Ava's head. She'd seen the news. Damian could tell. "Ava, sweetie, why don't you go wash your hands for dinner?" Mrs. Chen suggested. "Okay, I'm going to use the fancy soap." She ran upstairs. Mrs. Chen waited until she heard the bathroom door close. "You're all over the news," she said quietly. "I know. They're saying you're a billionaire, CEO of Crosswell Holdings. Is that true?" "Yeah." And you've been pretending to be... I wasn't pretending to be anything. I just didn't advertise who I was. Mrs. Chen studied him for a moment. That waitress, Emily, they're saying terrible things about her online, that she's lying, that she's after money. Damien's jaw tightened. Where? Social media, news comments. Victor Langford's lawyers are pushing a narrative that she's making false accusations to extort a settlement. She gave a statement to the police. That's not extortion. I know that, you know that, but the internet doesn't care about facts. Damien pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Mrs. Chen was right. The comments were vicious. Gold Digger saw a payday bet. She threw herself at the rich guy and got rejected. Poor Waitress Act is so transparent. It went on and on. Hundreds of comments. Thousands. They fired her, Damien said quietly. What? The diner. They fired her this afternoon for telling the truth. Mrs. Chen shook her head. That's awful. Yeah. Upstairs, Ava was singing something about magic turtles and veterinary medicine. Damien made a decision. I need to make some calls, he told Mrs. Chen. Can you handle dinner? Of course, but Damien, be careful. These people are trying to hurt anyone connected to you. I know. That's why I'm going to make sure Emily's protected. He went into his office and dialed Marcus. I saw, Marcus said before Damien could speak. The online harassment campaign against Emily Carter started about 2 hours ago. Professional job. Probably a reputation management firm on Langford's payroll. Can you trace it? Already did. Company called Digital Narrative Solutions. They specialize in controlling online conversations for corporate clients. Shut them down. Boss, that's not really... Find their client list. Find out who else they've done this for. And make sure every journalist covering this story knows that Langford hired a company to systematically destroy the credibility of a woman who filed a police report against him. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's scorched earth. He came after her. Now I'm coming after him. Okay, but there's something else you should know. Langford's lawyers filed an emergency motion this afternoon. They're trying to get a gag order preventing any of the women from speaking publicly about the harassment claims. On what grounds? They're claiming the NDA settlements are legally binding and that breaking them constitutes breach of contract. Damien felt anger rising in his chest. So he pays them to stay silent, then uses that silence as a weapon to keep them silent. Pretty much. Who's the judge? Patricia Reeves, 7th Circuit. She's hearing the motion tomorrow morning. Do we have anyone who can file an amicus brief? I've got 3 women's rights organizations ready to go. They're arguing that NDAs used to cover up illegal behavior are unenforceable as a matter of public policy. Good. Make sure every one of those women has legal representation. I don't care what it costs. Already handled. I've got 4 employment lawyers on retainer. Anyone who wants to speak is covered. Damien leaned back in his chair. How's Emily? Spoke with Rachel Kim. She's one of Langford's former victims. She made contact with Emily this afternoon. Offered her a place to stay and legal support. That was nice of her. Yeah, but Emily still doesn't know who you are. Rachel told her to look you up, but as far as I can tell, she hasn't called. She won't, Damien said. She thinks she's already caused me enough trouble. Has she? No. This is the most useful thing I've done with my money in 4 years. Marcus laughed quietly. You know this is going to get messier before it gets better. I know. Langford's not going to just roll over. He's going to fight dirty. Let him. After he hung up, Damien sat in his office for a long time, staring at a framed photo on his desk. Rebecca. Ava. Himself. Taken at Navy Pier 3 months before the cancer diagnosis. Ava was 3 years old in the photo, ice cream smeared on her face, laughing at something Rebecca had said. They'd been happy. Not perfect, not problem-free, but happy. What would you do? He asked the photo quietly. Rebecca didn't answer, obviously. But he knew anyway. She'd do exactly what he was doing. Stand up, fight back, protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's who she'd been. That's who he was trying to be. His phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. This is Emily. I looked you up. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry for dragging you into this. I'm sorry for not knowing who you were. I'm just... sorry. Damien stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Nothing to apologize for. You did the right thing. I did the right thing. What happens next isn't on either of us. It's on Victor Langford, and he's about to learn that money doesn't make you untouchable. It just makes the fall hurt more." He hesitated, then added, "Are you safe? Do you have somewhere to stay?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Rachel Kim is helping me. She's one of the women from the article. I don't understand why everyone is being so nice. Because that's what people are supposed to do. Take care of each other. That hasn't been my experience." Damien felt something tighten in his chest. "Well, maybe it's time for a new experience." The dots appeared and stayed there for almost a minute. Finally, "Thank you. For everything. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to repay anything. Just promise me you won't let him silence you." "I won't." "Good." There was a long pause. Then, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you really help me? And don't say because of your daughter. I mean, I know that's part of it, but there's something else. I can tell." Damien looked at Rebecca's photo again. He typed slowly. 4 years ago, my wife got sick. Cancer. We had the best doctors, the best treatment, everything money could buy. And she fought. Hard. But in the end, none of it mattered. She died anyway. And I realized that all the money in the world couldn't save the one thing that actually mattered to me. Since then, I've been trying to figure out what wealth is actually good for, what it can actually do. And I think maybe it's this: using it to protect people, to fight people who use their power to hurt others, to make sure that when someone like Victor Langford grabs someone's wrist and won't let go, there's someone with enough resources to make him pay for it. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "Your wife would be proud of you." Damien felt his throat tighten. "I hope so." "Daddy," Ava's voice from the kitchen. "Dinner's ready. Mrs. Chen made mac and cheese." Damien wiped his eyes quickly. "I have to go. My daughter needs me. Go. Be with her." "And Mr. Cross? Thank you for reminding me that decent people still exist." He put the phone down and went to have dinner with his daughter, who talked nonstop about magic turtles and painted spots, and how she was definitely going to be a veterinarian unless she became an astronaut instead. And for 30 minutes, Victor Langford didn't exist. The lawsuits didn't exist. The news cycle didn't exist. There was just mac and cheese and a 7-year-old's absolute certainty that the world was full of magic if you just knew where to look. Later that night, after Ava was asleep and Mrs. Chen had gone home, Damien stood at his windows watching the Chicago skyline. His phone rang. "Richard Harrison." Damien answered. "Mr. Harrison?" "Mr. Cross, I thought we should talk." "About?" "About the fact that you just destroyed one of my managing directors." "Your managing director destroyed himself. I just made sure people knew about it." Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, the board made the right decision. Victor should have been fired years ago." "But he wasn't." "No, he wasn't, and that's on us." Harrison paused. "I'm calling because I want you to know that Helix Capital is conducting a full investigation, not just into Victor, but into our entire culture, our policies, our oversight. I want to make sure this never happens again." "That's good to hear. I also want to personally apologize to Miss Carter and to compensate her for the loss of her job. She didn't lose her job because of you." "No, but she lost it because she told the truth about someone connected to my firm. That's close enough." Harrison sighed. "Look, Cross, I've been in this business 40 years. I've seen a lot of powerful men do terrible things and get away with it because everyone around them was too afraid or too complicit to stop it. What you did today, forcing us to actually look at what was happening under our own roof, that took courage." "It took money," Damien corrected. "Courage is what Emily did. I just had resources." "Well, however you want to frame it. Thank you." "You're welcome." They hung up. Damien poured himself a drink he still wouldn't finish and sat in the dark, watching the city lights. Tomorrow, Victor would strike back. Tomorrow, the legal battles would escalate. Tomorrow, Damien's carefully constructed anonymity would be gone completely. But tonight, 8 women who'd been silenced had their voices back. Tonight, a scared waitress knew she wasn't alone. Tonight, doing the right thing had actually worked. And that was enough. Victor's counterattack came at dawn. Damien was making coffee when his phone lit up with news alerts, one after another, like incoming artillery fire. Billionaire CEO Damien Cross under investigation for assault, Cross. Well Holdings founder accused of using wealth to intimidate victims' sources. Damien Cross has history of volatile behavior. He scrolled through the articles with growing disbelief. Every single one painted him as a violent, unstable billionaire who'd attacked an innocent businessman and was now using his resources to destroy Victor Langford's reputation. The sources were anonymous, the claims were vague, but the damage was immediate. His phone rang. Marcus. You seen this? Yeah, Damien said. Who's feeding them this garbage? Digital Narrative Solutions. Same company running the smear campaign against Emily, except now they've pivoted to you. They're good, I'll give them that. They hit every major outlet within 30 minutes. How is this legal? It's not libel if they couch everything as sources say and under investigation. They're not making direct accusations, just asking questions and letting readers draw their own conclusions. Damien set his coffee down harder than he meant to. The mug cracked. Can we fight it? We can issue statements. We can threaten lawsuits. But boss, this is the game. Langford's burning through what's left of his resources to drag you down with him. He knows he's already lost. Now he just wants to make sure you lose too. What about the women? Are they protected? For now, but the online harassment has escalated. Death threats, doxing, the whole playbook. I've got a security team monitoring all of them, but this is getting ugly fast. Upstairs, Damien heard Ava starting to wake up. Her alarm clock played some tinny pop song she'd been obsessed with for 3 weeks. I need to get Ava to school, Damien said. Keep monitoring everything. And Marcus, find me something we can use. I don't care how deep you have to dig. Langford wants to play dirty? Fine, let's get dirty. On it. Damien hung up and went upstairs to find Ava sitting on her bed, rubbing her eyes. Morning, baby girl. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday. Good. We have gym on Wednesday. She looked at him more closely. You look tired. I didn't sleep great. Was it because of the bad dreams again? Damien felt something crack inside his chest. After Rebecca died, he'd had nightmares for months. Ava had heard him more than once, though he'd tried to hide it. Something like that, he said. Come on, let's get you ready for school. They went through the morning routine, breakfast, teeth brushing, the daily argument about whether she could wear her light-up sneakers even though they were against dress code. Everyone wears them anyway, Ava argued. Then everyone is breaking the rules. But if everyone breaks the same rule, isn't it not really a rule anymore? That's not how rules work, but it should be. She wore the sneakers anyway. Damien pretended not to notice. They were halfway to school when Ava said, Madison's mom asked me something weird yesterday. Damien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What did she ask? If you were really a billionaire. I said no, because you drive a Honda and billionaires drive fancy cars. That's right? What did Madison's mom say to that? She got this weird look on her face and said I should ask you. Ava twisted in her seat to look at him. So I'm asking you, are you a billionaire? Damien had known this conversation was coming. He'd prepared for it. But somehow, sitting in morning traffic with his 7-year-old daughter staring at him with Rebecca's eyes, all his prepared answers evaporated. Yeah, he said quietly. I am. Ava was silent for a long moment. Oh. Does that change anything? I don't know. How much is $1 billion? A lot. Like, enough to buy a pony? Enough to buy a lot of ponies. Can we get a pony? No. Why not? Because we live in a penthouse apartment and ponies need fields and barns and we could move to a house with a field. Ava. She slumped in her seat. You're still not fun, even though you're a billionaire. Damien couldn't help smiling. Sorry to disappoint. Can I tell Madison her mom was right? You can tell Madison whatever you want. But Ava, some kids are going to be weird about it. Some parents are going to be weird about it. And I need you to understand that money doesn't make us better than anyone else. It doesn't make us more important. It just means we have more responsibility to be good people. Did Mom say that? Yeah, she did. Ava thought about this. Okay, but if being rich doesn't mean we can get a pony, what's even the point? I ask myself that question every day. He pulled up to the school drop-off line. Ava grabbed her backpack, then paused. Daddy? Are you in trouble? Like real trouble? What makes you think that? Because you have your worried face. The one you get when something's wrong, but you don't want me to know. Damien turned to look at her properly. I'm handling some stuff, but nothing you need to worry about. Is it bad stuff? It's complicated stuff. That's adult for bad stuff. Maybe. He reached over and squeezed her hand. But I promise you, everything's going to be okay. You always say that. Because it's always true. Ava looked skeptical, but let it go. She climbed out of the car, then stuck her head back in. Hey, Daddy, I'm glad you're a billionaire, even without the pony. Why's that? Because now when kids ask what you do, I can say something cooler than logistics. She slammed the door and ran toward the building, light-up sneakers flashing with every step. Damien sat in the drop-off line watching her disappear into the crowd of kids and felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Found something. You need to see this. Coming to your office in 20. Damien pulled out of the school and headed downtown to the building that housed Crosswell Holdings' executive offices. He normally worked from home, but today required the kind of conversation you had behind closed doors with soundproofing. He took the private elevator to the 48th floor and found Marcus already waiting in his office, laptop open, expression grim. This better be good, Damien said. It's not good, but it's useful. Marcus turned the laptop around. Victor Langford has a daughter, Stephanie, 23 years old, lives in New York. Damien felt ice in his stomach. Marcus, if you're suggesting we go after his kid, I'm not, but he is. Marcus pulled up a series of photos. These were taken 2 days ago. Outside Stephanie's apartment, professional surveillance, the kind you hire when you're building a file on someone. Who hired them? 3 guesses. He's investigating his own daughter? Not investigating, protecting. Marcus clicked to another screen showing email records. I pulled these from Digital Narrative Solutions servers. Victor's been in contact with them for weeks. He's been paying them to monitor Stephanie's social media, her friends, her movements. And look at this. An email thread appeared. Victor to the head of Digital Narrative Solutions. I need to know who she's talking to. If this gets out, it destroys everything. If what gets out? Damien asked. Marcus pulled up another file. A video. He pressed play. The footage was grainy, clearly taken from a phone, but the audio was clear. Stephanie Langford sat across from someone at what looked like a coffee shop. He's done this before, Stephanie was saying. I've seen it my whole life. Women who work for him, women at restaurants, women anywhere. He thinks because he has money, he can do whatever he wants. And he can, because everyone's too scared to stop him. The person across from her, a woman Damien didn't recognize, spoke quietly. Would you be willing to go on record, tell your story? I don't have a story. I'm his daughter. I've watched him be this person for 23 years and I'm tired of pretending I don't see it. The video cut off. Damien sat back. When was this recorded? 3 weeks ago, before the diner incident. Stephanie reached out to a journalist who was investigating Victor. She wanted to help. Victor found out and shut it down before the story could run. How? Threatened to cut her off financially, threatened to sue her for defamation, threatened the journalist's publication with legal action, the usual playbook. So he's been trying to silence his own daughter. For years, from what I can tell. Stephanie's tried to speak up before. Every time he makes it go away. She's financially dependent on him. He pays her rent, her credit cards, everything. And he uses that as leverage. Damien stared at the frozen image of Stephanie Langford on the screen. She looked tired, angry, resigned. Can we reach out to her? Already did, quietly. She's willing to talk, but she's scared. Victor's got private investigators following her, monitoring her communications. She thinks he's trying to build a case to have her declared mentally unfit so he can control her trust fund. Can he do that? With enough lawyers and enough money? Maybe. It's a stretch, but he's desperate enough to try. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Set up a meeting. Secure location. Make sure she's not followed. You sure about this? Once we involve his daughter, this crosses a line. He crossed that line the second he started surveilling her. I'm just making sure she has support if she wants to tell her story. Marcus nodded. I'll arrange it. After he left, Damien stood at the windows overlooking Chicago and thought about fathers and daughters and the things people did to protect their reputations. His phone rang. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cross? A man's voice. Unfamiliar. Nervous. My name is David Chen. I'm an attorney with Whitmore, Carey and Associates, Victor's law firm. I know who you are, Damien said. If you're calling to threaten me, I'm not. I'm calling to warn you. David's voice dropped lower. I'm one of the junior associates on the Langford case, and I need you to know that Victor is planning something bad. Why are you telling me this? Because what he's doing is wrong, and I don't want to be part of it anymore. David took a breath. Victor hired a private investigator to follow your daughter, to photograph her at school. He's going to use those photos to intimidate you into dropping everything. Damien's vision went red around the edges. If anyone touches my daughter, they won't. I mean, they already did. They took the photos, but they haven't delivered them to Victor yet. I'm the one who's supposed to pass them along, and I'm not going to do it. Why not? Because I have a 6-year-old daughter too, and the thought of someone using her as leverage in a corporate war makes me sick. David paused. Look, I know you don't know me. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm sending you the photos right now, all of them, so you know what Victor was planning, and so you can protect Ava. Damien's phone buzzed with an incoming email. He opened it with shaking hands. There were 47 photos. Ava at school, Ava at the park, Ava getting ice cream with Mrs. Chen, Ava in every moment of her daily life, photographed by strangers who'd been paid to violate her privacy. I'm going to destroy him, Damien said quietly. I know, and I'm going to help you. David's voice was steadier now. I've been documenting everything. Every illegal tactic, every ethics violation, every lie Victor's told his lawyers. I'll testify. I'll provide evidence, whatever you need. This could cost you your career. I don't care. Some things are more important than a career. Damien closed his eyes. Thank you. Just protect your daughter, Mr. Cross. That's all the thanks I need. They hung up. Damien immediately called Marcus back. Change of plans. I need security on Ava. Now. Full detail. Best people you have. What happened? Langford had her photographed. He was planning to use it as leverage. Marcus swore. I'm on it. 20 minutes. Make it 10. Damien called Mrs. Chen next. Mr. Cross, is everything... I need you to pick Ava up from school today. Not me. You. And I'm sending a security team with you. 2 men. They're going to stay with you until I say otherwise. You're scaring me. I'm sorry, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Of course. Good. They'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't go anywhere without them. Don't let Ava out of your sight. And if anyone approaches you, anyone at all who seems suspicious, you call me immediately. Okay, I will. After he hung up, Damien stood in his office trying to control the rage burning through his veins. Victor had gone after his daughter. That changed everything. His phone rang again. This time he recognized the number. Emily. Mr. Cross? I'm sorry to bother you, but something's happened. What's wrong? Someone broke into Rachel's house, the guest house where I'm staying. They didn't take anything, but they went through all my stuff. My laptop's been moved. My phone charger was unplugged. It's like they were looking for something. Are you safe right now? Yeah, Rachel called the police. They're here now, but Mr. Cross, I'm scared. I think it was Victor or someone working for him. It was. And you're right to be scared. But I'm going to fix this. How? By making sure he can't hurt anyone ever again. There was a pause. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes. He hung up and made one more call, this one to a number he'd hoped never to use again. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Cross? The voice was flat, military. Been a long time. Yeah, it has. Damien took a breath. I need a favor, Cole. Cole Ramirez had served with Damien in Force Recon. They'd been in firefights together, saved each other's lives more than once. After the military, Cole had gone private, the kind of private that didn't advertise services and only took clients through personal referrals. What kind of favor? The kind where someone's threatening my daughter and I need to make sure she stays safe. Where are you? Chicago. I can be there in 6 hours. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You know what my services cost. I don't care what it costs. All right, send me the details. I'll handle it. Damien forwarded everything. The photos of Ava, the information on Victor, the timeline of events. Then he sat in his office and waited. At 3 p.m., Marcus returned with news. Stephanie Langford wants to meet, tonight, but she has conditions. What conditions? No lawyers, no recordings, just you and her. She wants to look you in the eye and decide if she can trust you. Where? Millennium Park, by the Bean, 7 p.m. Public enough that she feels safe, but crowded enough that her father's people can't follow her easily. I'll be there. Boss, this could be a setup. I don't think it is. But even if it is, I'm still going. Marcus shook his head. You're either very brave or very stupid. Why not both? At 6:45 p.m., Damien stood near the Cloudgate sculpture, the Bean, watching tourists take selfies in its reflective surface. The evening was cool. The park was crowded. Somewhere in the crowd, Cole's team was watching his back, though Damien couldn't spot them. That was the point. At exactly 7, a young woman approached. She looked like her father, which Damien found unsettling. Same jawline, same eyes. But where Victor's face was hard and cruel, hers was soft and sad. Mr. Cross? Stephanie. How did you know it was me? You look like someone carrying a very heavy secret. She smiled faintly. Yeah, I guess I do. They walked slowly around the sculpture, keeping their voices low. Thank you for meeting me, Damien said. Thank you for not bringing an army of lawyers. Stephanie wrapped her arms around herself. I've been trying to figure out what to say. I've been practicing in my head for 3 hours. You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say. That's the thing. I've been ready for years. I just didn't have anyone I could say it to. She stopped walking and turned to face him. My father is a monster. I've known it since I was 12 years old. I've watched him harass women, bully employees, use his money and power to crush anyone who stood up to him. And the worst part is, he taught me that this was normal, that this was how successful people behaved. That's not your fault, isn't it? I'm 23 years old. I could have spoken up 100 times. I could have gone to the press. I could have filed reports. But I didn't. Because I was scared. And because he pays for everything, my apartment, my car, my credit cards. He made sure I was completely dependent on him. And then he used that dependence to keep me quiet. You're speaking up now. Only because you did first. You defended that waitress. You stood up to him. You didn't care that he was rich or powerful or connected. You just did the right thing. And that, she wiped her eyes. That gave me permission to do the right thing too. Damien was quiet for a moment. What do you want to happen here, Stephanie? I want to tell the truth. I want to go on record about what I've seen. I want other women to know that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that my father really is as bad as they think he is. She met his eyes. But I need protection, financial protection, because the second I go public, he's going to cut me off. He's going to try to destroy me, and I need to know I can survive that. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Why? You don't know me, because you're doing a brave thing, and brave things shouldn't come with financial ruin as a punishment. Stephanie studied him for a long moment. He says you're dangerous, that you're unstable, that you attacked him for no reason. Do you believe him? No. I watched the security footage from the diner, the real footage, not the edited version his lawyers are showing people. I saw what he did to that waitress. I saw you try to de-escalate. I saw his guy throw the first punch. She took a breath. You're not the monster in this story, Mr. Cross. My father is. Will you testify to that? Yes. Even knowing what it'll cost you? Especially knowing what it'll cost me, because if I don't, he wins, and I'm tired of watching him win. They talked for another 30 minutes. Stephanie shared stories Damien knew would haunt him for months. Times she'd seen her father corner assistants at office parties. Times he'd made crude comments about women's bodies in front of her. Times he'd bragged about settling harassment claims like they were business expenses. The worst part, Stephanie said quietly, is that he doesn't think he's doing anything wrong. He genuinely believes this is just how the world works. that powerful men get to take what they want, that women who complain are just being difficult. How did your mother handle it? Stephanie's face hardened. She didn't. She looked the other way for 30 years, took his money, and pretended everything was fine. They're separated now, but she still defends him, still makes excuses. She shook her head. I don't want to be like her. I don't want to be someone who knew the truth and did nothing. Then don't be. When they parted ways, Damien had everything he needed. Stephanie's testimony, her willingness to go public, her father's secrets laid bare by the one person he'd tried hardest to control. Marcus was waiting by the car. How'd it go? She's ready. Get her a lawyer. Get her financial independence. Get her protection. Whatever she needs. And Langford? Tomorrow morning, we end this. But Victor had one more move left to play. At 11 p.m., Damien's phone rang. The call came from the 18th District Police Station. Detective Morrison's voice was tight. Mr. Cross, we need you to come down here. Now. What's happened? Victor Langford just filed charges claiming you've been harassing him, stalking him, threatening his family. He's got documentation, witnesses, and he's demanding your immediate arrest. Damien felt the trap closing around him. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Marcus. He's making his last stand, trying to flip the narrative completely. Make me the aggressor. What do you want to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Damien pulled out his phone and made one final call. This one to the investigative journalist, Amanda Chen, who'd broken the original harassment story. Mr. Cross, I was hoping you'd call. I have something for you. The full story. Documents, testimony, evidence, everything. But I need it published tomorrow morning, before Victor can bury it. What kind of timeline are we talking? I can have everything to you by midnight. I'll need to verify sources, fact check, get legal clearance. How fast can you work? There was a pause. Then Amanda laughed. For a story this big, I can work very fast. Good. Because tomorrow morning, Chicago is going to wake up to the truth about Victor Langford. And by the time he realizes what's happened, it'll be too late for him to stop it. Damien hung up and started gathering files. Tomorrow, everything changed. Tomorrow, Victor Langford learned that money couldn't buy your way out of the truth. Tomorrow, the war ended. But tonight, Damien had to survive one more battle. Damien walked into the police station at 11:47 p.m. carrying a leather briefcase that contained 4 years of carefully maintained distance from the public eye, about to be incinerated for good. Detective Morrison met him at the entrance, looking like she hadn't slept in days. This is a mess, she said without preamble. Yeah. Langford's lawyers are upstairs. They've got affidavits from 3 witnesses claiming you've been following him, photographing him, making threatening phone calls. All of that's fabricated. I know, but they've got documentation. Phone records showing calls from burner numbers, photos allegedly taken by you outside his office building, a recording of someone who sounds like you making threats. Let me guess. The voice on the recording is close, but not quite right. Professional deepfake, probably commissioned in the last 48 hours. Morrison blinked. How did you Because that's exactly what I'd do if I was desperate and had unlimited resources and no moral compass. Damien set his briefcase on her desk. Can I see the evidence? She hesitated, then pulled up files on her computer. The photos were good. Someone who looked vaguely like Damien, shot from angles that obscured the face just enough to create doubt. The phone record showed calls from disposable numbers to Victor's office. The recording was Damien's voice, or close enough, saying things like, "You're going to regret this," and "I'll make sure you lose everything." This is sophisticated, Morrison said. Expensive. Victor's burning through whatever money he has left trying to bury me before I bury him. Damien pulled out his phone. But he made a mistake. See the timestamp on that photo? The one supposedly showing me outside his office? October 19th, 2:15 p.m. I was in a board meeting at Crosswell Holdings from 1 to 4. 37 witnesses, including my CFO, our legal counsel, and a representative from Goldman Sachs. He pulled up his calendar and showed her. Every meeting I attend is documented with building security footage. I can prove I wasn't anywhere near Victor's office. Morrison studied the evidence with narrowed eyes. What about the phone calls? Trace them. Really trace them. Not just the burner numbers, but the cell towers they pinged. I guarantee you'll find they didn't come from anywhere near my locations on those dates. And the voice recording? Send it to an audio forensic specialist. They'll confirm it's been digitally manipulated. Damien met her eyes. Detective, I'm not going to pretend I'm innocent in all of this. I went after Victor hard. I exposed his history. I helped the women he hurt find their voices. But I didn't do it with threats or stalking or intimidation. I did it with the truth. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the laptop. Wait here. She disappeared upstairs. Damien could hear raised voices through the ceiling. Victor's lawyers, probably, demanding immediate action. 20 minutes passed. Morrison came back looking grim but determined. The DA is reviewing the evidence. But between you and me? This smells wrong. The documentation is too perfect, too convenient, like someone put together a greatest hits package of actionable offenses. That's because someone did. Yeah. And I think I know who. She sat down across from him. Off the record? What's your endgame here? The truth, all of it. Published where everyone can see it. No more settlements, no more NDAs, no more powerful men getting away with hurting people because they can afford to make problems disappear. That's idealistic. Maybe. But I've got the resources to make idealism work. And after, when Victor's destroyed and the women have their justice and you've proven your point, what then? Damien thought about Ava, about the magic turtle at the park, about the way she'd looked at him that morning and asked if he was in trouble with the same worried eyes Rebecca used to have. Then I go back to being a dad, he said quietly. That's all I ever wanted to be anyway. Morrison's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up. DA says you're free to go, for now. But don't leave Chicago. Wasn't planning on it. Damien stood to leave, then paused. Detective? When this all comes out tomorrow, and it will come out, you're going to have reporters asking questions, lots of questions, about me, about Victor, about how this investigation was handled. I can handle reporters. I know you can. But I want you to know that whatever happens, I'll make sure the record shows you did your job right. You didn't let Victor's money influence how you investigated this. That matters. Morrison studied him for a moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Another rich asshole using his money to win a pissing contest. She almost smiled. Turns out you're just a rich asshole trying to do the right thing. That's rare. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. Damien left the station and found Marcus waiting in the car. How bad? Could have been worse, and the evidence was fake enough that Morrison saw through it. But Victor's lawyers are pushing hard. This isn't over. It will be, in about 7 hours. Marcus checked his watch. Amanda Chen just sent confirmation. Story goes live at 6 a.m. Full expose. Every woman who Victor harassed, every settlement, every dirty tactic, and she got Stephanie on record. His daughter agreed to be quoted. By name, she's done hiding. Damien leaned his head back against the seat. What about Emily? Is she safe? Cole's team has her location locked down. Guest house is secure. He also swept it for bugs. Found 3 listening devices and a camera hidden in the smoke detector. Victor's people? Almost certainly. They've been removed, disposed of in ways that can't be traced back to us. Good. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Marcus said, Boss, I've been meaning to ask. After this is done, what happens to Crosswell Holdings? The board's been asking questions. Investors are nervous. Your face is about to be everywhere. That's going to change how the company operates. Damien hadn't let himself think about that. For 4 years, he'd run Crosswell from the shadows, letting his executive team handle the public-facing work while he made the strategic decisions behind the scenes. That anonymity was about to evaporate completely. We'll handle it, he said. Same as we handle everything else. One problem at a time. That's not really an answer. It's the only answer I've got right now. They pulled up to Damien's building. The doorman nodded respectfully but didn't make eye contact. Everyone who worked in the building had been briefed about the media situation. No comments, no photos, no acknowledgement of anything unusual. Damien rode the elevator to the penthouse and found Mrs. Chen waiting in the living room, working on her needlepoint despite the late hour. She's asleep, Mrs. Chen said before Damien could ask. Had dinner, did her homework, took a bath. She asked about you 3 times. What did you tell her? That you were working, that you'd be home soon, that everything was fine. Mrs. Chen set down her needlepoint. Was I lying? No, everything is fine, or it will be. Mr. Cross, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Damien sat down across from her. Okay. Is Ava in danger? Real danger? Not just media attention or photographers. Real physical danger. She was. Victor hired people to follow her, to photograph her, to use her as leverage against me. But that's handled now. She's protected. Mrs. Chen's face went pale. Someone was following her? Not anymore. I have a security team watching her, the best in the business. They're so good you'll never even see them. That's not reassuring, Mr. Cross. I know, but it's the truth. And I'm not going to lie to you about this. You deserve to know what's happening. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long moment. I've worked for you for 6 years. I've watched you raise that little girl alone. I've seen how hard you try, how much you love her, and I've never questioned your judgment. But this is different. I know. You're putting her in the spotlight, whether you mean to or not, and children in the spotlight get hurt. I'm trying to prevent that. Are you? Or are you so focused on destroying Victor Langford that you're not seeing the cost? The words hit harder than Damien expected. He wanted to argue, to defend his choices, to explain that he was doing this for Ava as much as for Emily or Stephanie or the 8 women Victor had hurt. But Mrs. Chen wasn't wrong. What would you do? He asked quietly. If you were me, I'd ask myself which matters more, winning this fight or protecting my daughter's childhood. Because you can't have both, Mr. Cross. Not really. The moment this story breaks, Ava becomes the billionaire's daughter. She stops being just Ava, and you can't undo that. So I should let Victor win? Let him keep hurting people? I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need to be honest about what you're sacrificing, and you need to make sure it's worth it. After Mrs. Chen left, Damien went upstairs and stood in Ava's doorway again, watching her sleep. She'd kicked off her blankets. Mr. Trunk was on the floor. Her hair was tangled across her pillow in a way that would require serious negotiation in the morning. She looked peaceful, innocent, completely unaware that tomorrow her entire world was about to change. Damien picked up Mr. Trunk, tucked the blanket around Ava's shoulders, and whispered, I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm trying to do the right thing. I hope someday you'll understand. Ava murmured something that sounded like pancakes and rolled over. Damien went to his office and worked until 4 a.m., sending final documents to Amanda Chen, coordinating with lawyers, making sure every piece of evidence was bulletproof. At 5:30 a.m., he poured his first coffee and stood at the windows watching the sky lighten over Chicago. His phone buzzed at 5:59 a.m. Marcus. Stories live. It's everywhere. Damien pulled up the Chicago Unfiltered website. The headline dominated the screen. The Fall of Victor Langford. How a billionaire's pattern of abuse was finally exposed by his own daughter. The article was devastating. 13,000 words of carefully documented truth. Every harassment complaint, every settlement, every woman who'd been brave enough to speak. And at the center of it all, Stephanie Langford's testimony about growing up watching her father hurt people and learning that power meant never having to face consequences. Until now. The article had been live for 1 minute and already had 3,000 shares. By 6:15, it was trending on every social media platform. By 6:30, every major news outlet in Chicago was running their own versions of the story. By 7 a.m., it had gone national. Damien's phone started ringing. Board members, investors, business partners. Everyone wanted to know his side. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted to make sure they were on the right side of history before the day was over. He ignored all of it and made breakfast for Ava. She came downstairs at 7:20, hair still tangled, wearing mismatched socks. Can we have waffles? We can have whatever you want. Even ice cream? For breakfast? No. You said whatever I want. I meant within the reasonable boundaries of breakfast food. That's not what you said. That's what I meant. She climbed onto the kitchen stool and watched him make waffles. You're being weird this morning. Weird how? Nice weird, like too nice. It's suspicious. Damien flipped a waffle and tried not to smile. Can't a dad just make his daughter breakfast? Not when he's got his worried face and his phone keeps buzzing and Mrs. Chen looked like she was going to cry when she left last night. 7 years old, and already reading situations like a detective. Some stuff is happening today, Damien said carefully. Grown-up stuff. It's going to be on the news. People might ask you questions about it. What kind of stuff? Remember the man I told you about? The one who was being mean to someone and I stepped in to help? The one you punched? I didn't punch him. I stopped his bodyguard from punching me. That's basically the same thing. It's really not. Damien set a plate of waffles in front of her. Anyway, the story about what happened is going to be everywhere today. And people are going to want to know about our family, about me, about you. Ava poured syrup with the concentration of a brain surgeon. Because you're a billionaire. Yeah. And because you stood up to a bad guy. Something like that. Are you the good guy in this story? I'm trying to be. Then it doesn't matter what people say. She took a huge bite of waffle. Mom used to say that doing the right thing is hard, but that's why it matters. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. Damien felt his throat tighten. She was right. She usually was. Ava studied him seriously. Are we going to be okay? Yeah, we're going to be fine. Promise? Promise. She seemed satisfied with that and went back to destroying her waffles with the enthusiasm of someone who hadn't eaten in weeks, despite having dinner 7 hours ago. Damien's phone buzzed again. This time he looked. Text from Amanda Chen. Victor Langford just issued a statement. You need to see this. He opened the link. The statement was short, clearly written by lawyers, and utterly insufficient. The allegations made against me are false and defamatory. I have never harassed anyone. The individuals making these claims are being manipulated by Damien Cross, who has waged a personal vendetta against me since our unfortunate encounter. I intend to pursue all legal remedies available to me, including defamation suits against Mr. Cross and any publication that repeats these baseless accusations. Damien almost laughed. Victor was still fighting, still pretending he could lawyer his way out of this, still refusing to accept that the game was over. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Cross? A voice he didn't recognize. Female. Authoritative. This is Catherine Wade. I'm a federal prosecutor with the Northern District of Illinois. I need to speak with you about Victor Langford. Damien stepped away from the kitchen so Ava wouldn't hear. What about him? We've been building a case against him for 18 months. Securities fraud, wire fraud, witness tampering. The harassment allegations were always part of the picture, but we couldn't get anyone to testify. Everyone was too scared or bought off. She paused. Then you came along and broke the whole thing open. Those women who are speaking now, 3 of them have agreed to cooperate with our investigation. We're filing charges today. Criminal charges? Multiple counts. He's looking at serious prison time if we can make it stick. And thanks to your, let's call it aggressive transparency, we can. What do you need from me? Your testimony, your evidence, your cooperation, and probably your lawyers, because Victor's going to come after you hard for this. Let him try. Mr. Cross, I need you to understand something. This is going to be ugly. Victor has resources. He has connections. He's going to use every trick in the book to discredit you and everyone associated with this case. I know. I'm ready. Good. Because we're holding a press conference at noon, I'd like you to be there. Show a united front. Make it clear that this isn't just about harassment. It's about a pattern of criminal behavior that ends today. Damien thought about Ava, about Mrs. Chen's warning, about the cost of being in the spotlight. Then he thought about Emily, who'd lost her job for telling the truth, about Stephanie, who'd spent 23 years watching her father hurt people, about the 8 women who'd been silenced with money and NDAs. I'll be there, he said. By 10 a.m., Victor's world was in complete freefall. He sat in his apartment, not the penthouse he'd owned until yesterday when Helix Capital's board had frozen his assets pending investigation, watching his reputation disintegrate in real time. Every news channel was running the story. Every website had it on their homepage. Every social media platform was flooded with reactions. His phone had been ringing non-stop until he'd finally thrown it against the wall hard enough to shatter it. Jennifer Martinez had quit. 3 of his lawyers had quit. His accountant had quit. His PR team had issued a statement distancing themselves from him. Even his ex-wife had released a statement saying she stood with the brave women coming forward. He was alone, completely alone. And it was all because of Damien Cross. Victor poured himself a drink even though it was barely past breakfast. His hands were shaking. He'd underestimated Cross, completely and catastrophically underestimated him. He thought Cross was just another rich guy who'd lucked into money and would fold under legal pressure. He hadn't realized he was dealing with someone who had resources that made Victor's wealth look like pocket change. Someone who had connections deeper than Victor's. Someone who, most importantly, actually believed in the fight he was waging. The doorbell rang. Victor ignored it. It rang again. Then someone knocked. Hard. "Mr. Langford, FBI, we have a warrant." Victor set down his drink very slowly. The door opened. They'd used a key from building management. 6 federal agents entered his apartment with the kind of practiced efficiency that suggested they'd done this many times before. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression, held up a badge. "Victor Langford, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, witness tampering, and intimidation. You have the right to remain silent." Victor barely heard the rest of the Miranda warning. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. He was Victor Langford. He managed billions. He had senators on speed dial. He had nothing. Everything he'd built, everything he'd taken, everything he'd used to make himself feel powerful, gone. Because he'd grabbed a waitress's wrist in a diner at 2 a.m. and refused to let go when she asked him to. Because he'd underestimated the quiet man in the back booth. Because he'd never learned that money couldn't buy you out of consequences forever. They put him in handcuffs, led him out of the building past neighbors who stared, put him in a car while photographers captured every second. And Victor Langford, who'd spent his entire life believing he was untouchable, finally learned what falling felt like. At noon, Damien stood at a podium in front of the federal courthouse with Catherine Wade on one side and Emily Carter on the other. The press had turned out in force, cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions. The kind of media circus Damien had spent 4 years avoiding. Emily looked terrified. She'd changed clothes 3 times that morning before settling on a simple blue dress Rachel had lent her. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You don't have to do this," Damien had told her in the car. "Yes, I do. If I hide now, he wins. Even from prison, he wins." Catherine Wade stepped to the microphone first. This morning, federal agents arrested Victor Langford on multiple charges related to fraud and witness intimidation. This investigation has been ongoing for 18 months, but recent developments, specifically the courage of multiple women to come forward about Mr. Langford's pattern of harassment and abuse, gave us the evidence we needed to move forward. She outlined the charges, the evidence, the potential sentences. Then she stepped aside and gestured to Emily. Emily approached the microphone like she was walking toward a firing squad. "My name is Emily Carter," she said quietly. The microphone barely picked up her voice. Someone adjusted the levels. "I'm the waitress who Victor Langford assaulted at the Silver Lantern Diner. I'm here because I want other women to know that you don't have to stay silent. You don't have to accept harassment as normal. And you don't have to be afraid of powerful men who think their money makes them untouchable." Her voice got stronger as she spoke. "I lost my job for telling the truth. I've been harassed online. I've been called a liar and a gold digger, and worse. But I'm still here. Because Damien Cross showed me that sometimes someone does stand up. Someone does fight back. And that makes all the difference." She stepped back. The reporters turned to Damien. He hadn't prepared remarks, hadn't written anything down. He just spoke from the place that had driven him to stand up in that diner in the first place. 4 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer, and I learned that all the money in the world can't protect you from the things that really matter, can't save the people you love, can't buy you meaning or purpose or peace. He paused. But it can do something. It can protect people who can't protect themselves. It can give voices to people who've been silenced. It can make powerful people face consequences when they think they're above them. That's what wealth is for, not penthouses or luxury cars or private jets. It's for making sure that when someone like Victor Langford grabs someone's wrist and won't let go, there's someone with the resources to make him answer for it. The questions came fast after that. How long had he known about Langford's history? Was he pursuing civil action? What about his daughter? Would he comment on the federal charges? Damien answered what he could and deflected what he couldn't. Then a reporter from the back shouted, "Mr. Cross, do you think you're a hero?" Damien shook his head. No. The heroes are the women who spoke up despite being terrified. The heroes are people like Emily, who told the truth even when it cost her everything. I'm just someone with resources who decided to use them the right way for once. That's not heroism. That's basic human decency. And the fact that it's being treated as extraordinary says more about our society than it does about me. The press conference ended 20 minutes later. Emily turned to Damien as they walked back to the car. "Thank you," she said, "for all of this, for believing me, for fighting for me, for—" "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You changed my life. You changed it yourself. I just made sure you had backup." They drove back to Rachel's house where Emily was staying. Cole's security team was visible now. 2 men stationed outside, 2 more inside, all of them professionals who made it very clear that anyone wanting to get to Emily would have to go through them first. "What happens now?" Emily asked as they pulled up. "Now you heal. You figure out what comes next. You decide who you want to be without Victor Langford taking up space in your head." "And you?" "I go home. Have dinner with my daughter. Try to figure out how to be a normal dad again when my face is all over the news." Emily smiled slightly. "I don't think you were ever a normal dad, Mr. Cross." "Probably not, but I'm going to try anyway." He got back to the penthouse at 3 p.m. to find Ava sitting on the couch with Mrs. Chen, watching the news coverage with wide eyes. "Daddy, you're on TV." "Yeah, I noticed. You looked really serious and important, like a president or something." "I'm not a president." "But you're famous now." "Unfortunately." Ava studied him with those 2 knowing eyes. "Are you okay?" Damien sat down next to her and pulled her into a hug. "Yeah, baby girl, I'm okay." "Are you okay?" "I guess. Some kids at school were asking about you today. Madison said her mom said you're a hero, but Tyler said his dad said you're just a rich guy who wants attention." "What do you think?" Ava was quiet for a moment. "I think you helped someone who needed help, and that's what you're supposed to do. So I think you're my dad, and you did a good thing, and I'm proud of you." Damien felt something break loose in his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" "Absolutely." "And can I stay up past bedtime?" "No, but I'm proud of you." "Nice try." She grinned and went back to watching the news, pointing out every time she saw Damien on screen and providing running commentary about his tie choice and whether he should have worn different shoes. Mrs. Chen caught his eye from across the room and gave him a small nod. Not approval, exactly, but understanding. Acknowledgement that he'd made his choice and he'd live with the consequences, good and bad. That night, after Ava was in bed and the penthouse was quiet, Damien stood at his windows one more time. His phone buzzed with a final text from Marcus. "Victor made bail. $2 million. His passport's been flagged. He's not going anywhere. Trial probably starts in 6 months." Damien stared at the message. 6 months of legal battles. 6 months of testimony and evidence and watching Victor's lawyers try every trick to discredit the women. 6 months of his life under a microscope. But it was done. The truth was out. Victor would face consequences, and Emily, Stephanie, and 8 other women would finally have justice. His phone buzzed again, this time from Emily. "I don't know how to thank you properly, but I want you to know that what you did, standing up when no one else would, it gave me my life back. I'm starting to look for jobs again. Rachel's helping me, and I'm not scared anymore. That's because of you." Damien typed back, "That's because of you. I just made sure you had a fighting chance. What you did with it, that's all you." A pause. Then, "Still, thank you for everything. For reminding me that decent people exist. Thank you for reminding me why I had all this money in the first place. To help people who deserve it." He set the phone down and looked at Rebecca's photo on the desk. "I hope I did the right thing," he said quietly to her image. "I hope you'd be proud. I hope Ava grows up knowing that her dad stood up for someone who needed it, even when it was hard." Rebecca didn't answer, but Damien thought he knew what she'd say. She'd say that doing the right thing was never easy, but it was always worth it. She'd say that wealth was a test, and he'd finally passed. She'd say that she loved him, and she was proud, and he should go to bed because he looked exhausted. Damien smiled at the photo and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring more battles, more press conferences, more lawyers and reporters and people wanting pieces of his story. But tonight, Victor Langford was in custody. Tonight, Emily Carter was safe. Tonight, justice had been served. And that was enough. 3 months later, Damien found himself back at the Silver Lantern Diner at 2 a.m., sitting in the same corner booth where this had all started. The place looked exactly the same. Same cracked linoleum, same buzzing neon sign that still read Vers l'Air, same smell of burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. But everything else had changed. Karen approached with a coffee pot, older and tireder than Damien remembered, but smiling. "Wondered if you'd come back," she said, filling his cup without asking. "Couldn't stay away. Emily told me you might show up, said you liked the terrible coffee." "It's not that terrible. Honey, I've worked here 19 years. It's absolutely terrible." She set the pot down. "She's in the back. Give her a minute to finish up." Damien sipped the coffee, which really was terrible, and watched the late-night customers drift in and out. A truck driver, 2 nurses finishing a shift, a college kid cramming for an exam with textbooks spread across an entire booth. Normal people living normal lives in a city that never quite slept. Emily emerged from the kitchen 10 minutes later, untying her apron. She looked different. Not just the obvious things, the haircut, the new clothes, the way she held herself straighter. It was something deeper. The fear that had lived in her eyes was gone. "Mr. Cross, it's just Damien. How many times do I have to tell you that?" "At least a few more." She slid into the booth across from him. "Thanks for coming. Thanks for asking me to." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The diner's background noise, conversations, dishes clattering, the hiss of the grill filled the space between them. "So," Emily said finally, "I'm leaving Chicago." Damien had known this was coming. Marcus had mentioned it last week, but hearing her say it out loud still felt like something ending. "Where are you going?" "Portland, Oregon, not Maine. Rachel has a friend who runs a nonprofit there. Women's advocacy, workplace safety, that kind of thing. They offered me a job, coordinator position, decent salary, benefits. Nothing glamorous, but it's good work." "That's great, Emily, really. I wanted to tell you in person, and to say goodbye properly, not just a text or a phone call. I appreciate that." Emily wrapped her hands around a water glass Karen had left. "I also wanted to tell you something I've been thinking about a lot these past few months." "Okay." "That night, the night Victor grabbed me, I was so scared. Not just of him, of everything. I'd spent 3 years building this tiny, quiet life where nobody noticed me, where I could just exist without anyone demanding anything. And then you stood up, and suddenly I was visible again, exposed. And part of me hated you for it." Damien hadn't expected that. "I understand. Do you? Because I'm not sure I did until recently. I was angry at you for weeks. Angry that you'd made me matter when I'd worked so hard to not matter. Angry that you'd turned my safe, invisible life into this public thing." She looked down at her hands. "But then the trial happened, and I watched Victor sit there in that courtroom, looking smaller every day. Looking like what he really was, just a bully who'd gotten away with it for too long. And I realized something." "What's that?" "Being invisible wasn't safety. It was just another kind of prison. And you didn't put me in the spotlight to hurt me. You put me there because you believed I deserved to be seen, to be heard, to matter." Her voice got quieter. "Nobody's ever believed that about me before." "Emily, let me finish. Please." She took a breath. "The job in Portland. The new life I'm building. The fact that I can walk down the street without feeling like I need to make myself smaller. That's all because you stood up in this diner and decided I was worth defending. And I need you to know that changed everything for me." Damien felt his throat tighten. "You changed things for me too." "How? You're a billionaire. You had everything before you met me." "I had money. That's not the same as having everything." He looked around the diner. "After Rebecca died, I spent 4 years just going through the motions. Taking care of Ava, running my company, existing, but not really living. not really believing that anything I did mattered beyond keeping my daughter safe and my business running. And then I saw Victor grab your wrist, and something in me just broke. Or maybe it finally fixed itself. I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, I remembered why I built Crosswell Holdings in the first place. Not to make money, not to be powerful, but because I wanted to create something that helped people, that moved things, that mattered. He met her eyes. You reminded me what I was supposed to be doing with all this wealth, and I'll always be grateful for that. Emily smiled, and it was the first fully unguarded smile Damien had ever seen from her. So we saved each other, she said. I guess we did. They talked for another hour. About Portland. About Ava's recent obsession with learning to code. About the foundation Damien had started, the Workplace Dignity Initiative, that was already operating in 43 states. About Stephanie Langford, who'd enrolled in law school and was planning to specialize in employment law. About everything except Victor, who is currently serving the first year of an 8-year sentence at a federal prison in Pennsylvania. Finally, Emily checked her watch. I should go. Early flight tomorrow. Need a ride to the airport? Rachel's taking me, but thank you. They stood. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two people whose lives had collided by accident and been permanently changed by the collision. Then Emily stepped forward and hugged him. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. For seeing me when I was trying to be invisible. For standing up when everyone else looked away. For being exactly who you are. Damien hugged her back. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth, even when it cost you everything. It didn't cost me everything. It just cost me the wrong things. She pulled back, wiped her eyes, and smiled. Take care of that little girl of yours. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. Emily walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Hey, Damien? Yeah? Next time you see someone who needs help, stand up again. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people like you, he countered. She laughed. Agree to disagree. Then she was gone, walking out into the Chicago night toward whatever came next. Damien sat back down in his booth and finished his terrible coffee. Karen came over to refill it. She's going to be okay, Karen said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, she is. What about you? You going to be okay? Getting there. Karen nodded and moved on to other tables, leaving Damien alone with his thoughts. His phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Chen. Ava had a nightmare. She's asking for you. Damien stood immediately, left $40 on the table, enough to cover his coffee and tip Karen her usual 25%, and headed home. Ava was sitting up in bed when he got there, clutching Mr. Trunk with both hands. Hey, baby girl, Mrs. Chen said you had a bad dream. It was about Mom. Damien sat on the edge of her bed. You want to talk about it? She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her, and I kept asking her to speak louder, but she just kept fading away. Ava's voice was small. I can't remember what she sounded like anymore, Daddy. Is that bad? Damien felt his heart crack. No, sweetheart, that's not bad. That's just what happens when time passes. We don't forget the people we love. We just remember them differently. But I want to remember her voice. I know. Come here. He pulled out his phone and opened a folder he kept protected with 3 different passwords. Videos from before Rebecca got sick. He found one from Ava's 3rd birthday party. Rebecca's voice filled the room, singing Happy Birthday off-key and laughing. Ava's eyes went wide. That's her. That's exactly her. I've got hours of videos. Whenever you want to hear her voice, you just ask me, okay? Okay. Ava leaned against him. Do you still miss her? Every single day. Does it get easier? Yeah, it gets different. Not easier exactly, but different. The hurt becomes part of you instead of this separate thing, and you learn to carry it. That sounds hard. It is. But you know what helps? What? Doing things that would make her proud. Standing up for people. Being kind. Trying to make the world a little bit better than we found it. Ava was quiet for a moment. Is that why you helped Miss Emily? Because it would make Mom proud? Partly, but also because it was the right thing to do. Madison's mom says you're a hero. I'm not a hero, Ava. I'm just a dad who tried to do something decent. That's basically the same thing. Damien smiled. Not even close. Well, I think you're a hero, even if you won't admit it. She yawned hugely. Can I watch one more video of Mom? One more, then sleep. They watched a video of Rebecca teaching Ava to ride a bike. Rebecca running alongside, holding the seat, encouraging her. Ava wobbling and laughing and eventually crashing into a bush. Rebecca scooping her up and declaring her the bravest bike rider in all of Chicago. By the end, Ava was crying and smiling at the same time. She was really great, wasn't she? The greatest, Damien agreed. I'm going to be like her when I grow up. You already are. He tucked Ava back into bed, made sure Mr. Trunk was properly positioned, and kissed her forehead. Love you, baby girl. Love you too, Daddy. And hey? Yeah? Thank you for being brave. Like Mom would have been. Damien had to leave the room before she saw him cry. The next morning, he had breakfast with Ava, pancakes with chocolate chips arranged in a smiley face because that was apparently mandatory on Thursdays, and then drove her to school. You coming to the science fair next week? Ava asked as they pulled up to drop off. Wouldn't miss it. What's your project again? How mold grows on different types of bread. It's super gross. You're going to love it. Can't wait. Madison's doing something boring about magnets, but mine has actual mold. I'm definitely going to win. That's the spirit? She grabbed her backpack and paused. Hey, Daddy, some kids are still being weird about you being famous and stuff, but I don't care. I think it's cool that you helped people. Thanks, Ava. Even if you won't get me a pony. Still no on the pony. Worth a shot. She ran toward the building, and Damien sat there watching her go, thinking about how 7-year-olds could carry grief and joy and fierce love all at the same time without breaking under the weight. His phone rang. Marcus. Morning, boss. Quick update. The Workplace Dignity Initiative just got its largest donation yet. Anonymous donor, $5 million. Any idea who? Yeah, Helix Capital's board. Apparently, they're liquidating Victor's remaining assets and distributing them to organizations fighting workplace harassment. This is their first payment. Damien leaned back in his seat. That's fitting. Also, Catherine Wade called. Victor's appeals are going nowhere. He's going to serve the full 8 years, maybe more if the additional charges stick. Good. And one more thing. Remember Sarah Brennan? First woman to go on record about Victor's harassment? Yeah. She just got hired as VP of Human Resources at a major tech company. 40% pay increase. She called to thank you personally. She doesn't need to thank me. I told her that. She said to tell you that watching you fight for Emily gave her the courage to stop hiding what happened to her. And that changed her entire career trajectory. Damien was quiet for a moment. How many women did we help, Marcus? Total count. Directly? The 8 who testified, plus Emily and Stephanie. But indirectly, the Workplace Dignity Initiative has fielded over 3,000 calls in 3 months. We've connected women with lawyers, therapists, advocates. We've helped shut down 4 other serial harassers. We've changed company policies at 73 corporations. So if you're asking for a body count of lives changed, thousands, easily. All because I stood up in a diner. All because you decided your wealth should mean something. After they hung up, Damien drove to his office. The media attention had finally died down. Reporters had moved on to other stories. The photographers who'd camped outside his building for weeks had found other targets. Life was returning to something resembling normal. Except it wasn't normal. Not really. Because Damien had changed. He'd spent 4 years hiding. 4 years keeping his head down and his profile low and his wealth invisible. 4 years being nobody in particular to everyone except Ava. But that version of himself was gone. Now, people recognized him on the street. Some wanted to thank him. Some wanted to pitch him business ideas. Some just wanted to take selfies with the guy who'd taken down Victor Langford. He hated it and accepted it in equal measure. The price of doing the right thing was visibility. And visibility meant accountability. And accountability meant he couldn't go back to hiding even if he wanted to. His assistant met him at the elevator. Mr. Cross, you have 17 meeting requests. The board wants to discuss Q4 projections, and there's someone waiting in your office. Who? She said she's an old friend, wouldn't give a name, but security cleared her. Damien walked into his office and stopped. Stephanie Langford sat in one of his chairs, looking nervous but determined. Hi, she said. Sorry for showing up unannounced. I tried calling, but it's fine. Damien closed the door. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I wanted to update you about school, about everything. She took a breath. I started my first year at Northwestern Law, employment and discrimination law focus. And I wanted you to know that I'm doing it because of what happened, because you showed me that fighting back was possible. Stephanie, you didn't need me to show you that. You were ready to fight years ago. I just gave you backup. Maybe, but backup matters. It's the difference between fighting alone and fighting with an army behind you. She pulled out a folder. I also wanted to give you this. Damien opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten. They're from women who saw the trial coverage, who read the articles, who heard about what you did and wanted to share their own stories. Stephanie's eyes were bright. They're thanking you, thanking me, thanking Emily, for making them feel like their experiences mattered, like they weren't alone. Damien read through the first few letters. They were heartbreaking and hopeful in equal measure. Women who'd been harassed at work. Women who'd been assaulted and blamed. Women who'd stayed silent for years because they thought nobody would believe them. And now they were speaking up. I'm going to represent them, Stephanie said quietly. Once I graduate, I'm going to be the lawyer who fights for women like the ones my father hurt. And I wanted you to know that. Your father would hate that. I know. That's part of why I'm doing it. She smiled slightly. But mostly I'm doing it because it's right. Because someone has to. And it might as well be someone who knows exactly how these men operate. Damien set down the letters. You're going to be an amazing lawyer. I'm going to try. And Mr. Cross, when I start taking cases, I'm going to need funding for women who can't afford representation, for legal battles that could take years, for consider it done. Whatever you need. The Workplace Dignity Initiative will have a legal fund. You'll run it. Stephanie's eyes widened. You're serious? Completely. I haven't even passed the bar yet. So? You've got 3 years to get ready. We'll have the infrastructure in place by the time you graduate. She stood up and hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Thank you, she whispered, for believing in me when my own father didn't. He didn't deserve you, Stephanie. He never did. After she left, Damien sat at his desk, surrounded by letters from women he'd never met, whose lives had been changed by one night in a diner when he'd decided that doing nothing wasn't an option. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Emily. Made it to Portland safe. Starting the new job Monday. Just wanted to say thanks one more time. For everything. You gave me my life back. I won't forget that. Damien typed back, You gave me mine back too. Good luck in Portland. You're going to do amazing things. 3 dots appeared, then, We both are. That's what happens when decent people decide to fight back. He smiled and set the phone down. That evening, he picked up Ava from school. She'd gotten in trouble for telling Tyler that his dad was wrong about Damien, which had somehow escalated into a debate about whether superheroes needed capes, and took her for ice cream. 2 scoops? Ava asked hopefully. 1 scoop. It's a school night. But I defended your honor. You got in trouble for arguing. I got in trouble for being right. That's different. They compromised on 1 large scoop with extra sprinkles. They sat outside the ice cream shop watching people walk by. Chicago in early autumn when the weather was perfect and the city felt alive and manageable. Daddy? Ava said around a mouthful of chocolate chip. Yeah? When I grow up, I want to help people like you did. You can help people now. You don't have to wait until you're grown up. How? Be kind. Stand up for kids who are being picked on. Tell the truth even when it's hard. Small things matter just as much as big things. Ava thought about this. Did you do small things before you did the big thing with Miss Emily? Yeah, I tried to. Donations, charity work, that kind of thing. But the big thing was scarier. Much scarier. But you did it anyway. Yeah. Because it was right. Because it was right, Damien agreed. Ava nodded seriously. Okay, then I'm going to do big scary things too. When I'm older, or maybe before. I have no doubt. They finished their ice cream and walked back to the car holding hands. Ava chattered about her science fair project and how she was definitely going to beat Madison because mold was objectively more interesting than magnets. That night, after Ava was asleep and the penthouse was quiet, Damien stood at his windows one final time. 3 months ago, he'd stood in this exact spot wondering if he'd made the right choice, wondering if destroying Victor Langford was worth the cost, worth exposing himself and Ava to scrutiny, worth giving up the anonymity he'd carefully constructed. Now he knew the answer. It was worth it. Not because Victor was in prison, though that mattered. Not because Emily and Stephanie and 8 other women had found justice, though that mattered too. It was worth it because Damien had finally figured out what Rebecca had been trying to teach him all along. Wealth without purpose was just numbers in an account. Power without responsibility was just ego. And safety without courage was just another kind of hiding. The real question wasn't whether he could afford to stand up. It was whether he could afford not to. His phone buzzed one last time. Email from the Workplace Dignity Initiative. Subject: November statistics. He opened it and read through the numbers. 400 new cases opened. 63 women connected with legal representation. 17 corporations updating their harassment policies after pressure campaigns. 4 serial harassers fired and under investigation, all in 1 month. All because one tired billionaire had stood up in a diner at 2 a.m. and decided that a waitress's safety mattered more than his own comfort. Damien closed the email and looked at Rebecca's photo on his desk. "I think I finally get it," he said quietly. "What you were trying to tell me. About wealth being a test. About using what we have to protect people who can't protect themselves. About standing up even when it's scary." Rebecca's smile in the photo seemed to get wider, though that was probably just the way the light hit the glass. "I'm going to keep doing this," Damien continued. "Keep fighting. Keep standing up. Keep making sure that guys like Victor Langford don't get away with hurting people just because they have money and power. And I'm going to teach Ava to do the same. So when she's older, she'll know that having resources means having responsibility, and that doing the right thing is more important than staying safe." He picked up the photo and traced Rebecca's face with his thumb. "I miss you," he whispered, "every single day. But I think I'm finally becoming the man you always believed I could be. The one who uses what he has to help people. The one who stands up. The one who fights." He set the photo back down and walked away. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new women who needed help, new fights against powerful men who thought they were untouchable. But Damien was ready, because he'd learned the most important lesson of his life in a broken-down diner at 2 a.m. from a scared waitress who'd asked a man to let go of her wrist. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to look away. Sometimes the only thing that matters is being there when someone needs you, even when it costs everything. And wealth, real wealth, wasn't measured in billions of dollars or corporate empires or penthouse apartments. It was measured in lives changed, in justice served, in women who'd been silent finding their voices, in 7-year-olds learning that their dad was someone who stood up for people, in one quiet moment in a diner when a man decided that doing nothing wasn't an option. That was the only wealth that mattered, the only kind worth having. And Damien Cross, billionaire, single father, defender of a waitress he barely knew, finally understood that completely. He walked upstairs, checked on Ava one more time. She'd kicked off her blankets again. Mr. Trunk was on the floor again, and went to bed. Outside, Chicago continued its endless rhythm. Inside, a man who'd spent 4 years hiding finally slept peacefully, because he'd learned what it meant to be wealthy in the ways that actually counted. And that made all the difference.